She filled in for her sick sister at the cafe. The man at table 3 wasn't just a customer. He was the CEO. "Come on, sis. I am just covering your shift for 2 hours. Please, please do not let anything go wrong today." Mia whispered into her phone, stepping into the narrow back room of the cafe as she adjusted the green apron around her waist. Her blonde hair, hastily tied in a low ponytail, clung slightly to the side of her cheek from the morning humidity. Her sister coughed on the other end, raspy and breathless. "I owe you so bad," the voice wheezed. "Seriously, I will make it up to you. Just take the orders and smile. The morning crowd is quiet, okay? You'll be fine." Mia sighed and shoved the phone into her pocket. She was not a barista. She had never run a register, steamed milk, or remembered the difference between a flat white and a cappuccino. But her sister was sick, really sick, and their mother had just been readmitted to the hospital last night. So Mia did what she always did. She showed up. 10 minutes in, she had only fumbled 2 drinks, miscounted change once, and burned her fingers trying to grab a croissant from the oven. Not a disaster, she figured, until she got to table 3. The order had been a simple black coffee, no sugar, no milk, no nonsense. The man sitting there had not looked up once since she brought it to him. He was in his late 30s, maybe early 40s, with dark hair and a sharp jawline, sleeves rolled just enough to show a dark watch on his wrist. Headphones hung loosely around his neck, not in his ears. He was typing intensely on a sleek silver laptop. Mia tried to be careful, she really did. But her elbow nudged the corner of the tray as she cleared an empty plate, and in one horrifying instant, the full cup of coffee tipped. The dark liquid spilled like ink across the keyboard, and the screen blinked twice before dying. "No, no, no, no," Mia gasped, lunging forward with a fistful of napkins, hands trembling. "I'm so sorry. Oh God, I'll pay for the repair. I will, whatever it costs. The man paused. Then he calmly closed the lid, took a folded cloth from his coat pocket, and began wiping the keyboard. "It's just coffee," he said, voice quiet, low. "I've spilled worse." He did not raise his voice, he did not flinch, he did not even meet her eyes. Mia froze, holding a wad of wet napkins like a child caught in a storm. "I really am sorry," she said again, softer this time. "Please, let me cover it." He shook his head once. "No need." He stood, slipped the laptop into a waterproof case, and, without touching the coffee, without another word, walked straight out the door. Mia stood there, still holding napkins, her hands sticky with caffeine and shame. The cafe had gone quiet. The regulars were too polite to stare. But she could feel the heat rising in her cheeks, a hot flush of embarrassment that soaked deeper than the coffee had. She cleaned the table in silence, each swipe of the cloth feeling heavier than the last. He had not yelled. He had not rolled his eyes. He had not even sighed. Somehow, that made it worse. Mia was used to harshness. She could brace herself against anger, prepare a defense. But kindness? Kindness delivered with indifference, quiet and absolute, cut sharper. It was not just coffee she had spilled. It was something else. Something that left her standing by table 3, staring at the door long after he had disappeared through it, and wondering why, of all the things that could have gone wrong today, it had to be this. Mia returned to the cafe the next morning, shoulders tight and eyes rimmed with fatigue. Her sister's fever had spiked overnight, and the doctors decided to keep her in the hospital for observation. That meant Mia was back behind the counter again, unplanned, unprepared, and emotionally stretched thin. She buttoned her apron with a sigh and tucked a small bakery box under the register. It was early. Rain misted the windows in soft streaks. The scent of brewed coffee filled the air, warm and familiar, and before the clock struck 8:30, she saw him, Juan, walk through the door. Her breath hitched. Same coat, same laptop bag, same expressionless face. He took his seat at table 3 without a glance her way, no order, no conversation. Just sat down, opened his laptop, and began typing in silence. Mia hesitated only a moment, then grabbed the bakery box and walked toward him, heart beating far too fast for something so small. She placed it gently on the table, just beside his laptop. Inside was a lemon tart, her sister's favorite, bought from a corner bakery with the last of the cash in her coat pocket. Tucked under the lid was a small, handwritten card. "Sorry for the mess. Maybe sweet can fix bitter." Juan did not look up, but he slid the box an inch closer to his laptop, and Mia walked away without saying a word. From that day forward, he came in daily. Always the same time, always table 3, always quiet. He never ordered a thing. He wore headphones loosely around his neck, but Mia noticed he never actually used them. No blinking light, no cords connected, no music playing. It was like they were a shield he never turned on, and every morning, Mia left something for him. Sometimes it was a chocolate cookie. Other days, a slice of banana bread she had baked late at night after visiting the hospital. The note inside changed with her moods. "Hope today is kinder to you. We all spill things sometimes. The best things in life leave stains." Juan never responded with words, but each time, before he took the first bite, he would pause, inhale the scent of the treat, close his eyes for just a second, like the aroma held something sacred, like he needed to remember it. It was that moment, those 2 seconds of reverence, that made Mia keep baking. One afternoon, as she passed by his table with a tray of drinks for another customer, she paused briefly behind him. He did not see her, but she saw what he did. He took one of her notes, the pink one, with "You're more than your silence" written in looping cursive, and gently folded it in half, then in quarters, then again. Finally, he opened his wallet and slipped the tiny paper inside. Mia's lips parted. She felt the corners of her mouth lift, not out of amusement, but something closer to relief. Or maybe wonder. Someone was listening. And someone cared. That evening, she stayed an extra 30 minutes just to make sure the counters were spotless. She caught herself humming while she swept near table 3. Her shoes no longer dragged as much. Her sighs came slower. And then it happened. The next morning, Mia walked out of the back room and found table 3 exactly as she expected. Juan, seated, laptop open. But this time, something was different. A folded envelope lay beneath the tip jar. Inside was a $5 bill and a note. "Today was kinder. Thank you." Mia stood motionless, the paper trembling slightly in her hand. It was the first time he had responded, the first time he had acknowledged the notes, the pastries, the presents. Her fingers grazed the edge of the envelope, eyes warming. She folded the note again, just as he had done with hers, and placed it carefully inside her apron pocket. When she looked up, Juan was already watching her. He gave a single, subtle nod. Mia smiled. It was small, but it was real. And in that moment her heart softened in a way it had not in a very long time. The conversations began the way most important things do, quietly, almost accidentally. One morning, after placing a warm pumpkin muffin on Juan's table with the usual note, Mia lingered a little longer than usual. She watched as he read her message, the faintest trace of a smile forming at the corners of his mouth. She cleared her throat. "That one has nutmeg," she said, nodding toward the muffin. "I overdid it last time. Hope this batch is gentler." Juan looked up. "I liked the last one," he replied. It was the first full sentence he had spoken to her since the coffee spill. Mia blinked, then laughed softly. "Well, if you like nutmeg, I've got great news about tomorrow's scones." He chuckled under his breath. "I'll be here." After that, their words came more freely, still sparse, but meaningful. They talked about simple things, what kind of tea smelled better than it tasted, how the sun never hit table 3 directly, the pros and cons of crunchy over soft cookies. And then, gradually, deeper truths slipped into the silences. Mia told him about her mother. "She was diagnosed last spring. I dropped out of my psych program 2 weeks later. I kept telling myself I'd go back eventually, but... Her voice trailed off as she stared at the frothing milk behind the counter. Juan didn't interrupt. He just nodded, eyes steady, letting the weight of her words settle without judgment. I still read psych books sometimes, she added. Not the textbooks, the people ones, the ones that remind you why we're all just a little messy, and that's okay. He finally spoke. That's probably the best kind. Mia smiled. What about you? What do you do, besides haunt this table? I'm between things, he said simply. She tilted her head. Sounds mysterious. Juan shrugged. Sometimes mystery is just exhaustion in a nice coat. It made her laugh, but she sensed something behind his words, something unfinished, private. She didn't push. He never talked much, but he watched, and Mia, without trying, gave him plenty to notice. She greeted every customer with a sincerity that could not be faked. She knelt down to talk to toddlers at eye level and remembered the names of elderly patrons' dogs. When an angry man once shouted at her for getting his order wrong, she apologized with such calm grace that he later returned to tip her double and say sorry. Juan saw all of it. He saw how she gently coached a nervous teenager through his first job interview. He saw how she tucked $1 into the tip jar of the tired delivery guy when no one was looking. And he saw how every evening after closing, she sat on the cafe's back steps for exactly 5 minutes, staring at the sky, as if giving herself permission to rest. That kind of goodness was not loud. It did not announce itself. It just was. One Tuesday afternoon, near the end of her shift, a little girl came into the cafe with her mother. While the woman ordered at the counter, the girl wandered around with crayons and a piece of scrap paper. Mia noticed, crouched beside her, and asked if she liked to draw. The girl nodded and got to work. 15 minutes later, she returned with a beaming smile and a sheet filled with crooked stars, oversized eyes, and wild yellow hair. "Here," she chirped. "It's you!" Mia laughed, genuinely touched. "That's beautiful. Thank you." The girl pointed at the caption she had scribbled in shaky letters at the bottom. "The nice blonde lady who smiles." She ran back to her mom, giggling, leaving Mia holding the paper like it was something sacred. Juan had watched the entire thing from table 3. When Mia glanced at him, cheeks flushed with surprise, she found him already watching her, his expression soft, unguarded. He smiled. Not a half smile, not the faint twitch of politeness. A real, full smile that lingered in his eyes. Something shifted between them in that moment. It was not dramatic, not fireworks or violins, but something old inside Juan, something silent and tired had stirred. And in that quiet corner of the cafe, a new kind of warmth had begun to grow. The rain came hard that afternoon, sudden and loud against the windows, drumming like a quiet storm inside Mia's chest. She wiped her hands on a towel behind the counter, watching water collect along the edge of the sidewalk. Table 3 was empty. Juan had not come in. It unsettled her more than she expected. She told herself he was just a customer. A quiet, kind man who liked muffins and folded paper notes into his wallet. Nothing more. Nothing she should wait for. Then the bell above the door jingled. Juan walked in, damp from the shoulders down, a dark umbrella folded under one arm. His hair was tousled, his coat dripping, but he looked calm. The moment their eyes met, Mia felt her chest lighten, just a little, but before she could greet him, a commotion near the curb drew her attention. An elderly woman was struggling to lift a small cart filled with groceries into a waiting taxi. The driver stayed inside, unmoved. People passed by under umbrellas, barely glancing at her. Mia did not hesitate. She dropped her towel and ran outside, arms bare, shoes instantly soaked. Her apron clung to her back as she knelt beside the woman. "Let me help you," she said, lifting bags one by one, ignoring the water seeping into her sleeves. The cart was heavier than it looked, and the taxi's trunk refused to stay open. Her hair stuck to her face, and her breath came harder as the rain picked up. Then, suddenly, there was a coat over her shoulders. Not hers. Warm, dry, smelling faintly of cedar and something clean. She looked up. Juan stood beside her, rain plastering his shirt to his chest, sleeves rolled past his elbows, his face unreadable but present. He said nothing. He did not take over. He did not rush her. He simply stood there, holding the trunk open with one hand, offering the quiet support of someone who knew how not to interrupt. Together, they finished packing the last bag. The old woman thanked them softly, eyes wide with gratitude, then climbed into the taxi and disappeared into the rain. Mia straightened slowly, pulling Juan's coat tighter around her. She turned to him, soaked through, her heart knocking awkwardly in her chest. "You didn't have to come out here," she said, brushing hair from her face. "You could have stayed dry." He looked at her for a long moment, then spoke, voice low and gentle. "Some moments. Don't need words." She blinked. Then, in the hush between raindrops, he added, "Sometimes presence matters more than anything you could say." That stopped her cold. Mia, who had spent her life trying to say the right thing, to make people feel heard, suddenly understood something deeper. Sometimes the most healing moments came in silence. They stood there, the rain softening around them, neither reaching for an umbrella nor running for shelter. Just two people, wet to the bone, not quite touching, but closer than they had ever been. Juan finally broke the stillness. He reached out, not for her hand, but to adjust the collar of his coat around her shoulders. Mia smiled, lips trembling just slightly. "You'll catch a cold," she whispered. He shrugged. "Worth it." They didn't go back inside right away. The cafe windows steamed with the heat of others inside, but out here, in the open air and falling rain, they found something warmer. Neither said what was in their hearts, but they both knew. Something had shifted again, not loudly, not dramatically, but definitely. And as they stood there, drenched and quiet, a kind of truth settled over them. Not every love story begins with declarations. Sometimes it begins in silence, in rain, in a coat offered without question, and the way someone stays, just long enough to remind you that you are never as alone as you think. The cafe was busier than usual that morning, buzzing with staff from different branches, name tags flashing, clipboards in hand. Mia had been asked to help cater for a private internal event, a leadership summit for the chain's upper management. She was told there would be speeches, strategy sessions, probably a buffet table or two. She agreed without thinking much of it. After all, it was just one more shift, one more place to be helpful. Still, as she arranged the pastries on the catering table and adjusted the coffee urns, her eyes wandered to table 3, empty. For the first time in weeks, her chest pinched unexpectedly. She shook it off and focused on the task at hand. The event was held in the large hall upstairs, transformed into a sleek presentation space. Staff in smart suits filled the chairs, chatting quietly, sipping espresso from branded paper cups. Mia stood near the side wall with a tray of canapes, half listening as the MC welcomed the team and introduced the keynote speaker. "Please welcome our new CEO, Mr. Juan Reyes." Mia turned instinctively toward the stage, then froze. Juan walked confidently to the podium, dressed sharply in a charcoal suit, a slight smile on his lips. He looked calm, assured, familiar and not. Her breath caught. It was him. The man from table 3. Her heart pounded, the tray in her hands suddenly too heavy. Her mind reeled through the past few weeks, the silence, the folded notes, the coat in the rain, the muffins, the conversations about tea and cinnamon, the quiet, careful trust that had grown between them. He had never once mentioned this. CEO, not between things, not transitioning, not consulting. CEO. Mia stepped back, face flushing with confusion, betrayal, and something more raw, hurt. Had she been just another part of some test, an employee to observe? A novelty to entertain him while he judged her from behind a coffee cup? She did not stay to hear his speech. She slipped out the side door and down the stairs, apron unfastened, hands trembling. Back in the empty kitchen, she gripped the edge of the counter and took slow, deep breaths. She hated crying at work. Later that day, after the event, Juan came looking for her. She saw him through the narrow office window. He scanned the room slowly, his eyes landing on her for the briefest moment. But she turned away before he could step closer. She left early. He did not follow. The next morning, table 3 was empty again, and the next, and the next. A week passed in silence. Then, on a rainy Thursday, Mia found a letter on the counter, slipped under the box of tea bags. Her name was written in bold, neat handwriting on the envelope. No stamp, no return address. She opened it slowly. Inside was a short note, written in the same hand as every folded napkin from her past deliveries. But this one was different. Mia, I owe you more than an explanation, but I will start here. I never came for the coffee. I never stayed for the pastries. I stayed because, for the first time in a long time, someone saw me, not for my title or my power or my failures, but for who I was in silence. You made space for that, without asking anything back. You were the first person who made me want to stop running, to sit still, to show up. I did not tell you who I was because I liked being just the guy at table 3. I did not mean to hide. I just wanted to be someone else with you, someone honest. I hope that is still worth something. Joan Mia stood by the back door, the note trembling in her hands. Her eyes burned, and this time she did not fight it. She folded the paper once, then again, pressing it to her chest like a pulse. Her thoughts swirled with pain, confusion, and something far more complicated, hope. He had lied by omission, but he had also sat with her through storms, folded her notes like they were treasures, remembered every message, every pastry, every moment. She was not ready to forgive him. Not yet. But for the first time in days, she felt her heart soften, just enough to remember that not all secrets are meant to deceive. Some are meant to protect something too tender to name, and maybe, just maybe, that meant there was still a page left to turn. Mia hadn't planned to talk about it. Not with anyone. But 3 days after the conference, she found herself curled up on her best friend's couch, hands wrapped around a chipped mug of peppermint tea that had long gone cold. Eliza, her friend since college, listened quietly until Mia finished the story with a hollow, "He's the CEO." There was a beat of silence, then Eliza scoffed. "Of course he is. That's classic. Come on, Mia, these types, they play humble, hang around like they're just observing. Meanwhile, they're sizing you up, and when it's all over, boom, surprise. CEO, like it's some kind of romantic twist." Mia flinched. "It wasn't like that, wasn't it?" Eliza leaned forward. "You don't think you were just some feel-good story he can use later? Look at this kind barista who changed my perspective." PR gold. Mia shook her head slowly. He didn't seem like they never do. The words hit harder than they should have. Maybe because Eliza had been burned before, by a wealthy fiancé who'd sold her dreams and delivered only betrayal. Or maybe because, deep down, Mia was already doubting everything. She went home that night and sat in the dark for a long time, replaying moments that had once felt beautiful and now seemed tainted by silence. The next morning, she resigned from the café. No explanation, no goodbye to Juan, just a short email and a heavy heart. She didn't hear from him, and that hurt too. Days passed, then a week. Mia kept her head down, took care of her mother, went on long walks with no destination, read old psychology books though she barely absorbed the words. One gray Saturday, she stepped outside to check the mail and stopped in her tracks. There, propped gently against her porch railing, was her mother's old bicycle. Restored, the rusted frame now gleamed a soft teal. The dented basket had been replaced with a new one woven from thick cane. The tires were full, the seat new leather. It looked exactly like the way her mother used to describe it from her youth. That bike made me feel like I could fly. Mia blinked back tears. On the seat was a package, wrapped in brown craft paper and tied with a navy ribbon. No card. Inside was a worn psychology notebook, her own, from her first year in college. She hadn't seen it in ages. When she opened it, a single page was marked, page 47. Highlighted in yellow was a sentence she remembered underlining during a late-night cram session. Listening is not about crafting a reply. It is about understanding what someone cannot say aloud. Tucked beside the page was a small white envelope. She opened it with shaking hands. It was a workshop ticket for a free, community-led event focused on everyday empathy in mental health. At the bottom was a handwritten note, page 47, the lesson you once taught me without even knowing. You made me listen, not to respond, but to understand. Signor Jamia. Jamia pressed the book to her chest. The wind rustled the trees around her, soft and steady. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the hurt, beneath the doubt, her heart exhaled. She was not sure what she would do next, but for the first time in days, she did not feel used or observed or manipulated. She felt seen, truly seen, and that meant something. Mia arrived early but slipped in late, choosing a seat in the back row where the shadows pooled beneath the tall auditorium lights. The workshop hall was warm and buzzing softly with quiet conversations, the kind of energy that came from people genuinely wanting to learn something that might change them. She clutched the ticket in her hand, the one he had left tucked inside her old psychology notebook. She had told herself this was just curiosity, that she did not owe him anything, but her heart had not stopped beating a little faster since the moment she stepped through the doors. No one knew she was there. No one called her name or looked her way. She was safe in her corner of anonymity, until the host stepped up to the microphone. Mia's breath caught. It was Juan. No suit this time. Just a simple shirt, sleeves rolled, his dark hair slightly tousled. He looked less like a CEO and more like the man who used to fold her notes like they meant something. He smiled briefly, scanning the audience. I was supposed to open this workshop by sharing something about empathy, he began, voice steady. But the truth is, I am not here as a teacher today. I'm here as a student, of someone who probably does not even realize she changed how I see the world. He paused, hands resting lightly on the podium. Some months ago, I met a woman who spilled coffee on my laptop. It sounds like a small moment, but it was the first time in years someone truly looked me in the eye and didn't see my job, my title, or my past mistakes. Mia sat perfectly still, her hands clenched in her lap. She apologized with a pastry, he continued, a soft laugh under his words. And over time, with tiny acts of kindness, she taught me how to be still, how to show up, how to listen, not to fix, not to respond, but to understand. He scanned the room again, slower this time. She reminded me that empathy is not grand, it is quiet, consistent, gentle. A long pause. And she's here today. Mia's breath faltered. She's probably sitting in the back because she never looks for the spotlight. But I want you all to know that the best teacher I've had in a long time was never in charge of this stage. She was behind the counter, in the rain, folding notes and offering muffins to a man who had forgotten how to be still. The audience began to applaud, warm and soft. Juan stepped back from the microphone. He did not try to find her in the crowd. He just smiled once more and left the stage. After the workshop, people mingled, exchanging notes and emails, but Mia stayed in her seat. She needed a moment. Then he appeared, quiet as ever, standing at the end of her row. She looked up slowly. Juan didn't ask how she was. He didn't reach for her hand. He didn't say anything rehearsed. He just met her gaze and said gently, "If you still remember me, if you have room for someone who's still learning, would you meet me back at table 3? Mia stared at him, lips parting just slightly, and then, after a long, breathless silence, she smiled. It was a quiet Thursday morning when Mia walked back into the cafe. Nothing had changed. The gentle hum of the espresso machine, the low chatter of early customers, the same soft jazz playing from the corner speaker. But everything felt different. Her heart thudded softly as she glanced toward table 3. He was there. Juan sat exactly where he always had, his elbows resting on the table, his eyes on the window, like he was waiting for something, no, someone. And in front of him sat 2 cups of coffee, steaming gently. Between them was a small, familiar white box tied with twine. As Mia approached, she saw the note taped on top in his unmistakable handwriting. Sweet things still fix bitter days. Her lips curved into a quiet smile. He stood as she reached the table, not making a show of it, just enough to honor the moment. "I wasn't sure if you'd come," he said. She pulled out the chair across from him and sat down. "I wasn't sure either." They shared a moment of silence, soft and full, not awkward but honest. Juan slid a folder across the table. "What's this?" she asked, eyebrows raised. "A proposal," he said. She opened it. Inside was a job offer, official letterhead, neat formatting. A position newly created, Director of Customer Well-Being and Empathy Integration. Her name was already typed on the top. She looked up slowly. "Are you hiring me because I gave you muffins?" He smiled. "Because you reminded me that businesses are still about people, and people need more than good coffee." She raised an eyebrow, teasing, "Is this a real role or a guilt gift?" Juan leaned in, eyes gentle but sincere. "It's a real role, a needed one. And you're the only person I trust to define what it means." Mia bit her lip, flipping through the pages. There were ideas sketched in the margins, notes about community outreach, mental health days for baristas, customer care rooted in psychological understanding. It was thoughtful, visionary. "You wrote these?" she asked, surprised. "With your voice in my head?" he replied. "Page 47 kept talking." She laughed softly. Then, with a playful tilt of her head, she asked, "So, this is a job interview?" Juan shook his head, smile widening. "No, this is an invitation to be the one person I never want to stop listening to." Her chest fluttered. She looked at the coffee in front of her, the pastry box, the man who had gone from stranger to constant, from silence to presence. Mia reached into the box, pulled out a small lemon tart, and broke it in 2. She handed him 1/2. "Sweet things fix bitter days," she said, echoing his note. He took the pastry, touched by the symmetry of it all. They sat there for a long time, sharing coffee, trading quiet smiles and long glances. No grand declarations, no fireworks, just 2 people choosing to stay, to listen, to begin again, right where it all started. As the cafe buzzed around them, time slowed. The past had been messy, the future uncertain. But in that moment, at table 3, something whole was being written. One sip, one word, one silent promise at a time. Thank you for watching this heartwarming journey of healing, presence, and love that began with a spilled cup of coffee and unfolded at table 3. If this story stirred something in your soul, reminded you of the power of kindness, or simply made you believe in slow, quiet love again, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Soul Stirring Stories. Here, we bring you real emotions, gentle lessons, and tales that stay with you long after the screen fades to black. Join our community for more stories that don't just entertain, but touch the heart. See you in the next story. Until then, keep believing in small beginnings.